So this video is going to be devoted to talking about all the fruit trees that I'm growing right now or experimenting with growing right now. I have like other fruits like berries and stuff, but that can be a topic for another video. So my current one that I'm most excited about right now is the cacao. And I have them all, well, most of them. There's a few in the garage that haven't fully leafed yet. But these are doing pretty well, it seems like. Their leaves are darkening, and they're getting a little bit bigger over time. And they got to this size over about a month. They germinated pretty fast and then shot up pretty fast. But I'll move on to the other trees. So next up is the apples. This is the Granny Smith. And it's going to be a couple years before this starts bearing fruit, because I just got it earlier this year. And then I have a few more apples that are seedlings that we grew from a Granny Smith. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then these two are pomegranate seedlings. And it'll be interesting to see how these do once they reach a mature height. And then I have my donut peach, which my theory is that it has failed to break dormancy because it didn't get enough cold temperature hours, because it apparently needs a bit more than other varieties, which is a bummer. Because I even dug it up to check on the roots, and they seemed fine. There's just not a lot of growth, so that led me to believe that it hasn't broken its dormancy. And this is my first stone fruit that I've grown or have been trying to grow, so we'll see how that one progresses. Next to it, the banana is doing super well. I got it maybe late fall, so we went straight into winter where it suffered and its leaves got blown around, and it was cold, so it didn't grow much, but it made it through the winter, and now it is putting on a lot of beautiful growth. I love the way these leaves look. This is amazing. I'm going to have to repot it, otherwise it'll never be able to get big enough to do anything. But that's a ways in the future. And then behind it, I'm working on growing some mangoes from seed. And some of them, actually like 2 or 3 of them sprouted, but the slugs got to them. So I don't know if they're going to throw out more shoots or if that's it. They used their energy on that single shoot. I'm not super familiar with mangoes, so this is an experiment on my part, a little learning process. I'll move on to a little orchard over here. So we have the Haas avocado and the Zutano avocado here. And they are not that old either, so they have not started bearing fruit. These are a couple of the first trees that I acquired for the garden. And it might be another year or two before they start putting on fruit. But right down below them, I have a bunch of avocado seedlings I planted from pits. This one is the oldest. It's also the biggest. And I have a bunch of in-process pits that I'm sprouting back here. You can see this one's already sprouted. And we got a little one coming up. And there's something going on in there. Nope. I don't know if they're all gonna sprout, but it's fun to try. And then we got a couple more, 3 more, I should say, back here. I think they've been getting a little sun blasted, so I moved them behind the house. And then behind me is where the rest of the trees are. So I'll kind of go through them in a little rapid succession. This is the macadamia, and it's a bit taller than most of them. And then here, I'll go through my citrus collection. We have the Meyer lemon, and then we got the Bear's lime, and this one was really interesting because it put out like tons of flowers. There was nowhere on this plant where it did not have flowers, and the bees were loving it. It was really cool. And so they all, and you can kind of see some of them still here. So they all started to become fruit, and then it started dropping most of them. So it's really interesting to see that happen. Here's another one that got a little bit bigger before it dropped. So I'm guessing that's just the plant deciding, hey, I can't support like literally 50 or more fruit, so I'm gonna drop most of them and focus on maybe 10 to 12. It looks like it's got maybe 6 or 7 that it's committed to. And that's super interesting because I've heard about other plants, stone fruit in particular, that won't do that naturally on their own. They'll grow in clusters, from what I understand, and then they should be pruned if you want to get more that get bigger and juicier. The next one is the blood orange. I think we may have already left blood orange season, as I understand it. And this one, when I approached repotting it, had a huge rock in the pot. I was very annoyed by that. And this, so I got this from Home Depot, I believe. And similarly, I got the lime and the lemon from Lowe's. Got these 3 from the big box store. And I don't think I'm unlikely to buy any more trees from the big box stores because they must get them from low quality nurseries, because there was a huge rock in this pot when I repotted it and the soil was terrible. Similarly, I got the lemon and the lime at a point when I was less familiar with picking out trees, and I am now of the opinion that they are not necessarily the best shape that I would prefer. And so what I mean by that is, so this lemon has its what you might consider the leader kind of jutting off this direction. And, you know, it doesn't have to be grown as a tree that has like a central leader. I could grow it as like just a little bushy potted citrus. Like those are out there. That's an option. But I want to try and get it to grow straight up a little bit at least. So I could have avoided that problem or potential problem if I had known how to choose better trees from the get-go. And the other thing is I was looking for a kumquat for a little while because the nurseries didn't have any. So I went back to Home Depot and checked it out, and there was one that was labeled a kumquat on like the tag, but then on the pot it was labeled as something else. I think it was like a mandarin orange or something. And then on top of that, the tree itself had like 3 different shoots on top, and it wasn't clear which one you would select as a leader if you wanted to groom your tree that way. And even worse, it looked as though there was a sprout coming from the rootstock because of the way the graft had been done. So this tree was a mess. Not only could I not identify what the variety really was, but on top of that, it had like multiple leaders that were competing with a shoot that was coming out of the rootstock. So I was like, this is a disaster in terms of a tree. I couldn't believe it. And that same day I went to another nursery, and actually that brings me to one of my other citruses. That day I got this Buddha's hand from a nursery, and I was telling him about the tree at Home Depot, and he's like, yeah, we used to sell to Home Depot and we don't anymore because they're so strict with us. If a tree doesn't sell or if it dies, they have to credit Home Depot for the tree. It's the nursery's stuck holding the bag, so to speak, for trees that they sell. And I thought that was crazy. So what I think has ended up happening with the big box stores is all the reputable nurseries don't want to necessarily deal with them. Or a lot of reputable nurseries that are quality feel like they don't want to deal with the strictness or unreasonableness of the big box stores. So other nurseries that feel that they can handle what the big box stores are throwing at them will take on that business. But I think you'll also have lower quality nurseries taking on that business. So that's what I mean by I probably won't buy any more trees from big box stores. It's because of that phenomenon of them pushing nurseries so hard. The ones that might give them quality products don't want to do business with them anymore. So they end up getting lower quality trees with crazy problems, and that's what they sell. So I don't want to I don't want that. I am not even sure that this is really a blood orange because it hasn't borne any fruit yet. I will be very annoyed if it's not. So that was kind of a rambling story, but there's a lot of cautionary things in there about selecting trees at a big box store, and you might just avoid those problems by going to a quality nursery. Moving on, I showed you the Buddha's hand. I also did finally get a kumquat. I got the Nagami kumquat from the same nursery as the Buddha's hand. And then I also got a grapefruit. Happy to finally have a grapefruit. And then I got a really weird one. I've already done a video about this. This is the Wekiwa Tangilolo. Tangilolo is a nickname given to it by growers. It's actually a type of tangerine that's like a weird hybrid of a few things. And this is a rare one. This is not in wide production by any means. And it had an interesting taste. I got to taste it when I was at the nursery. It was pretty sweet, and it was kind of shaped like an orange, but kind of colored like maybe a grapefruit or a lemon. And the guy at the nursery told me that two fruit next to each other on the tree might have different levels of sweetness and sourness. So that's an interesting quality. Oh, I should show you this. So on the Buddha's hand, you can see some of them coming in, and the Buddha's hand looks like a hand, and as it matures, the hand kind of starts to open up. It's a really weird plant, but it's really cool to see. Moving on from that, I have a couple mulberry varieties. Actually, I have 3 mulberry varieties. So this one is, I think this is the Persian mulberry. And somewhere in here, I think there's a fruit starting to form. Let me see if I can get to it. There it is. See a tiny little fruit there. It probably won't get that big because the tree is so young. But at some point, this is going to really start taking off. From what I understand about mulberries, they can get really crazy and uncontrollable, and I can't wait. And then next to it, I have a Pakistan mulberry. And this one is doing pretty well. No fruit on it yet. I probably won't see any until next year. And I got this one. So most of my trees I have opted to get very young, very small. Just because I'm not in any rush. But I do want to get started on growing trees. So I chose to just go the more affordable route and buy them or grow them from seed even. Just starting small beginnings. So my third variety of mulberry is a white mulberry variety. I don't know more about it beyond that. I am trying to grow it from cutting, and this is actually my second attempt to grow that particular one from cuttings. My first experiment with it, it seemed like they were doing okay, but they ended up not rooting. So I've gone back to the drawing board with that, gotten fresh cuttings, and am using some rooting hormone and trying better methodology. So I think we'll have more success with those cuttings. We shall see. So here, this is the smallest tree that I have. This is an acerola cherry, and it has been small for quite a while. It finally decided to start putting on some height, but like I said, I'm not in any rush. And then next to it, I have pomegranate, and this isn't my first pomegranate because I was growing those other ones from seeds, but this one is a wonderful is the variety. And then behind it is pecan. And Pecans actually want to have a partner in order to set fruit, and I only have one at the moment, so I'll have to acquire another one, or I'm considering once this is bigger, I might air layer this branch and just clone the tree. We'll see what happens first. And next to it, we've got the almond, and I might need to trim these branches because it's kind of all over the place. But it is pretty young as well, and all this growth on here is new. It was just a tiny little twig through the winter. It only had a little bit of leaves, and it dropped them all for winter. But then when spring rolled around, it woke up and just shot up like you couldn't believe. It's all the way up here now. And then next to that, I have, this is a carob. And I'm excited about this. This will be really cool to have. It's got some healthy new leaves there. Which reminds me, I'll walk back over there. So I have something called an ice cream bean, and it grows in pods in a similar way to carobs. And they taste a little bit like vanilla ice cream. It's more from the texture. They have like a pulpy stuff in their pods. We got to try it at the nursery that we got these from. But these are seedlings too. So it's going to be quite a while before this is producing any pods, that's for sure. But I got this one in a tiny little pot, and there were actually multiple seedlings in the pot, so I separated them out. And I actually have 4 ice cream bean seedlings, so someday we'll have more. And that brings me here. So I was doing cutting experiments, like I said, with the mulberry, the white mulberry, and at the same time I did experiments with fig cuttings, and this one has been successful. This one managed to grow despite my inexperience with working with cuttings. These other ones here have been kind of middle of the road. A lot of their tips have dried out. Some of them have sprouted from the base, but the leaves died back, so I don't know if they're going to resprout. They may. From what I understand, figs can be a pretty tenacious grower, so they might come back. If not, I am happy to have this one. I do enjoy figs. So over here behind the cacao, we have our coffee tree. And this one is from Costa Rica. It's called Obata Rojo. It's going to be a little while, but so coffee beans come from a coffee berry that grow on this tree, and it is a labor-intensive process to pick coffee berries, but it'll be interesting, and eventually we'll have a small batch of homegrown coffee. I believe this is one that's best for light roasts, so I am looking forward to that one day. And if I remember correctly, coffee are more of understory plants, similar to cacao, so they kind of want more dappled shade. They can, similar to cacao, again, they can be acclimated to more full sun, but they're naturally more understory plants. So I've kind of got it in a spot where it's got more shade. For now, I may move to acclimating it to more full sun over time. We'll see. A new addition that I have is papaya. And so I learned recently that papayas, they tend to also need a partner to set fruit. They can be male or female or both, hermaphroditic plant. And it's not clear what type these are. So we shall see once they mature. But this is an interesting one to add to the collection. And then behind them, I've got the cherry moya. And every time we've tried cherry moyas from the store, we have not enjoyed them. I had one once where I did kind of enjoy it, but I think I just haven't had a lot of luck with cherry moyas from the store. And so I'm looking forward to when this one bears fruit. So I'll get some actual good cherry moyas for once. Because I think what's happening is that they just harvest them a little too soon, so the flavor is just kind of lost. And then down here next to it, you might recognize this as a loquat. And I'm pretty excited about this one. Again, it's going to be a little while because it's very small. So that... Actually, no. That doesn't do it. I have one more. I have the pineapple guava. And this one may or may not produce fruit this year. I'm okay with it if it doesn't. But these ones are really interesting because even the flower buds before they open have like a very floral, fruity flavor. I got to try them at the nursery recently. It was pretty interesting. So that does it for all the trees I have out in the garden. I am experimenting with growing some other things from seed. I have some apricots and grapefruits that are sprouting in the grow station in the garage. And I'm trying to get some plums and some other things to sprout, but they haven't sprouted yet. So that's all the trees that we got for now. I'm probably going to expand the collection as time goes on. And then as these get bigger, I will have to find appropriate homes for them. There's not any good place here, really. So they will have homes eventually. And I lied, actually. There is a couple other varieties that I just got in the mail. I got some elderberry trees. So that'll do it for the trees.